Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers. And this is the season finale of season 5 of Wrestling at Random. Now, don't fear, there will be a season 6. There's nothing to worry about. But if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you know that here on the main feed, the free feed of Wrestling at Random, we go into season breaks after about 30 episodes. This is the 30th episode. So here on the free feed after today, we will be going into a break, not too terribly long, but a break between season 5 and season 6. However, we will give you information a little bit later on, if you aren't aware, of how you can continue to still get new episodes each and every week during the season break. More on that later. But the randomizer, sometimes I feel like it has a sense of humor. We say it giveth, we say it taketh away. We talk about all the tens of thousands of hours of pro wrestling in the randomizer and the tens and thousands of hours of shows available. A lot of times early in seasons and late in seasons, I feel like the randomizer gives us some pretty out there stuff. So what did it give us for the final episode of season 5 of Wrestling at Random? An episode of WCW Thunder from the year 2000.
I don't know if there's a good year of Thunder, but I know there's a bad one, and the year is 2000.
I mean, what, Thunder started in 98? Thunder went as WCW went, but it was always obviously worse than Nitro and weirder than Saturday Night and whatever. But yeah, this
is our third trip to Thunder.
Really?
Okay, so if you're watching along,
that's crazy that it's our third trip to Thunder.
If you're watching along, this episode we're going to review is WCW Thunder from September 20th, the year 2000. We've reviewed 2 prior episodes. You have to go to season 4 to listen to us review Thunder from 1998. That was the Raven DDP match,
which was awesome.
Which was awesome. The that Disciple promo.
Oh God! Well, you found when Thunder was entertaining, when a lot of it was Raven and DDP as like the big stars on the show, because the big stars really weren't working it that often.
But if you go all the way back to season 2 of this podcast, all the way back, season 2, episode 18, we reviewed an episode of Thunder from March of 2001.
So that's one of the very last episodes of Thunder, because obviously WCW died in that month, and that's one of those. We also had a 2001 WCW pay-per-view. Was it Greed or Sin?
Yeah, so it was. This is the go-home show for Greed.
Yes.
And then we had the actual Greed pay-per-view in season 1.
Which was really good. That awesome cruiserweight opener. Like, in my mind, we've talked about before, like the dregs of 1999, and then just the sheer, just bad professional wrestling television that was 2000 in WCW. In my mind, before we started doing this podcast, my recollection is a hardcore WCW fan. If you're watching on YouTube, you see I'm wearing my Nitro shirt right now. My recollection was that WCW, from a quality standpoint, started to turn the corner in those first 3 months of 2001 to being, well, obviously from a star power standpoint, a shell of what it had been prior. Like, it started to be a good, fun, at least decent week in and week out pro wrestling show. And then WCW died. Like, it would have been so much better if it would have died at the end of 2000. You didn't have those few months. But when we watched those shows, that Thunder and that Greed pay-per-view, it kind of confirmed that, it had turned the corner a little bit. I mean, as you'll see from this show that we're reviewing, it had nowhere to go but up from where they were here in September of 2000.
Yeah, nothing good here. September of 2000, this show opens with Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett, Kevin Nash, and Vince Russo.
Well, this is a recap from Nitro from a couple days prior. Thunder would air on Wednesdays during this time period. So this was a recap from Nitro 2 days earlier.
Yeah, so Steiner, Jarrett, Nash, and Russo are all challenging Booker T for his world title. Booker hit Scott Steiner with a bat, put Russo on top for a pin, which means Russo became the number one contender for Booker's title. This already, after this recap, I'm already angry that Vince Russo's winning matches.
I'm angry, obviously, that Vince Russo is in matches, much less winning matches. But it's also, we're 30 seconds into this show after we get the spaceship logo to open. And we see this video package that afterwards I'm more confused than when the package first started. I have no idea what I just saw. Like, my notes are just like, what just happened? What is this? We then get some, what can only be described as aggressive early 2000s stock music and a million super fast clips of WCW action that comprise the open for Thunder, which is here in Erie, Pennsylvania, with one side pretty full and the other side, the hard camera side, pretty empty. It's not a huge crowd, but there are more people here than this product deserved, and it's only due to the loyalty that WCW fans had while the ratings had cratered, the attendance had dropped. The ratings were still higher and the attendance was still higher than it should have been given this product. But I can remember as a WCW fan watching each and every week, Monday and Wednesday or Monday and Thursday or whenever Thunder would air on a given week, thinking this was going to be the week, hoping this was going to be the week that it would start to feel like my WCW again.
There were 2,000 people in the building. 1,120 were paid for a total gate of $26,410.
Yikes.
Mike Tenay, Tony Schiavone, and Stevie Ray are your commentary
False.
team.
Straight shooting Stevie Ray.
Russo comes out with WCW security. Vince Russo, we're told, will get the title shot on Nitro next Monday. He's doing an interview in the ring. He says he will win the title in his hometown this Monday. Russo gives Booker T the night off and said he's telling us about how he worked out at the power plant for 45 minutes.
For an hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah, an hour and 45 minutes.
Such a random time, duration of time that I couldn't help but laugh. Also, like, we get very early on, like, it's this weird deal where, like, Russo's cutting this promo, but Schiavone and Tenay and Stevie are, like, talking over him at times while he's doing this promo. And we also get a lot of insider terms. Schiavone says a lot of people have blown up at the power plant in that time frame.
So Stevie Ray leaves the commentary position to confront Russo, who was talking about Booker T, his tag team partner there. Russo throws Stevie out of the building, threatens to fire him. A car comes squealing into the parking lot, and a shirtless Scott Steiner driving, which is hilarious, gets out of the car. Jeff Jarrett's riding shotgun, and Medeja is in the back seat, Scott Steiner's girlfriend. 9 minutes in.
You're leaving out some of the best parts where Stevie is walking out, going up the ramp, and Russo tells him, "Don't go up the ramp. It's my ramp. Go around it." Russo then says, "On Monday night, there will be no drama for your mama. I'm going to punk you out. Can you dig that?" The other weird thing, and we'll see a lot more weirdness along these lines later, is that Mike Tenay, it's one of these things that I completely memory hold until we see the segment later on that I could not ever forget for all the wrong reasons. But I had up to this point forgotten that Mike Tenay was like heelish. Mike Tenay was a prick. He's like sticking up for Vince Russo. Stevie Ray gets thrown out. Tenay says, "Well, that's more airtime for us." It's like Mike Tenay doing an early version of that horribly obnoxious heel play-by-play Michael Cole that we've talked about on this podcast before.
Scott Steiner comes out with Jeff Jarrett. Steiner's beating up security with a pipe. Russo tries to mace Scott Steiner, but he no-sells it. He's got glasses on, so he's protected from that. And then he screams, "Get that shit out of here." Russo says he was going to lay down for Steiner, obviously lying. And then we hear, how many title shots have I given you, Jeff? Which is just what you want to hear. You want to hear about people talking about the writing of a show you're watching while you're watching the show. How many title shots have I given you, Jeff? Shivani tries to cover it up by saying you don't give title shots, you earn them. But it's already just too much. Like, I don't know who this product is for.
Well, that's the thing throughout. Like it's trying to do two things throughout this show, neither of which are what WCW fans wanted. It's trying to do what you're talking about, this constant work shoot, constantly the announcers trying to act like, oh, this went off script. Oh, this wasn't on the format. Oh, this isn't happening as it was supposed to. Or the other thing that happens throughout the show is the most blatant, like pathetic attempts to do Attitude Era WWF here in WCW 2000 to the point that the announcers, and I remember this from when we reviewed Bash at the Beach 2000, I'd forgotten about it, and then when they started,
we're just a couple months after Bash at the Beach 2000,
which we have in the back catalog as well. The announcers say over and over, sports entertainment. Here in WCW in the year 2000, they're not saying wrestling. They're saying sports entertainment. There is no like, please like my sport, little brother type of thing that you're going to find than this. It's just like I have secondhand embarrassment for Tony Schiavone every time he says sports entertainment.
Jeff versus Steiner versus Sting is set up for tonight's main event,
which is honestly shocking. Thunder, not Nitro, but Thunder, as we're getting into the fall of 2000, and we are going to see Sting in a three-way with Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner. Like, I have no expectation this is going to be good, but it's more star power than I expected.
Yeah, Jarrett and Steiner say they can get rid of Sting, and then he promises them all title shots. So he says Russo says he's the boss, and then runs away. But Booker T shows up, not letting Russo head to the back. So they're on the stage area, and Russo runs away as Sting shows up. Booker and Sting beat up Steiner and Jarrett. And they're trying to explain what happened on the previous pay-per-view, and I couldn't. It was either Steiner or Sting defeated Goldberg on Sunday. I couldn't figure out what they were trying to tell me.
Yeah, I think it was Goldberg, or I think it was Steiner that beat Goldberg, but I can't say for certain because so much was happening here. This was also like Sting and Booker, like they take care of Scott Steiner and Jeff Jarrett pretty easily. They get the best of them very easily, and then we go to break. It's a really like low energy brawl as we go to break.
After commercial, Jeremy Borash joins the commentary team to replace Stevie Ray. He was sent out there by Vince Russo, playing the role of Russo's stooge on the commentary.
Yes, Jeremy Borash, who was the host of the internet radio show WCW Live. And in storyline, like you said, he was the Vince Russo stooge. This show is already, and even more as we go through this comp becomes more obvious. It was already, though, in the first segment, feeling like an NWA TNA weekly pay-per-view with more star power. And then we come back from the commercial break, and the first thing we see is Jeremy Borash. And I'm like, all right, here we go. We're in TNA land. We are basically in the Impact Zone here in Erie, Pennsylvania.
We get a commercial for WCW Magazine in the year 2000. 17 minutes in. And we are going to have our first match.
Well, before that, though, we get the first of many teases. Like, this is to the level, well, obviously not as real-life offensive. It's not that far from being that offensive in terms of the actual content. But this reminds me of that Confidential episode where we had a million teases for the Lex Luger Elizabeth 911 call. It's not even just commercial break. Like every segment, we get a clip and a tease from this sit down backstage interview with Mike Tenay and Stacy Keibler, who is apparently pregnant, but It is the father is not her husband, her estranged husband, David Flair, and Mike Tenay is already in these clips seeming very heelish, just seeming like a complete jerk.
We will recap this entire Stacy Keibler, Mike Tenay segment later. I'm baffled. I have to. We will have audio clip later to show you because there's no way we can recap it in a way. You've got to hear how this whole thing played out and that someone thought this was a good idea. I don't understand.
Well, we'll get to it. It's we've joked before. We've talked about Vince Russo booking, and it's how friends can't get along. No one can maintain friendships, and everyone is abusive to the women in their lives.
Yes.
Like there is no more of like, oh wow, the booker hates women and he's getting it out through what he's putting on television than this segment.
So 17 minutes in, we are ready for our first match. You cannot hear the ring announcer at all, so some things never change in WCW. It's one of my big WCW pet peeves is that you can never hear the ring announcer on television, only in the building. The first team is the Young Dragons, Kaz Hayashi, Jimmy Yang, and Jamie Noble under a mask with their manager, Leia Meow. You know who she is, Adam.
Oh, the night kimono Wanalea dance atop the ECW arena. Hell yeah, I know who that is. And you mentioned Jamie Noble. He's Jamie San. He's wearing an eye mask. Yeah. I guess it got him on TV, so that's good. We should also mention, as the introductions were happening here, as the Young Dragons were being introduced, we were told that on top of the big WCW World Title match coming up on Nitro between Booker T and Vince Russo, we have the Miss WCW 2000 pageant, and Mike Tenay tells us that Howard Stern's Whack Pack will be the judges.
The Young Dragons' opponents in this match are the Natural Born Thrillers, the team of Mike Sanders, Mark Jindrak, and Sean O'Hare.
Yes, above average Mike Sanders, who was like a cowardly geek with the two jacked up and incredibly athletic but very green guys in Mark Jindrak and Sean O'Hare.
So Sanders comes to join commentary during the match. Then he gets back into wrestle at points. Yang tries comedy, but O'Hare boots him in the chest. Yang eats a punch and does a full flip. Kaz Hayashi tags in. Jindrak with a Samoan drop. We get a Swanton bomb, but Jamie San makes the save.
The Swanton bomb, which is the Swanton bomb, like 2/3 of the way across the ring from a guy, Sean O'Hare, who is massive. This dude has got to be legit 6'4", 6'5", a big, jacked up, roided up dude, and he hits this perfectly.
Jamie tags in, runs wild briefly, but gets cut off with a sit-out powerbomb by Jindrak. Sanders tags in, tries to get the pin, but Jamie kicks out. Jamie hits a pescado to the outside, but O'Hare catches him and drops him over the guardrail. Jindrak and O'Hare throw Jamie into the ring. And Sanders so Jindrak and O'Hare launch Jamie into the ring, and Sanders catches him and hits a power slam in midair here.
I was worried just because of how bad this show is, this episode of Thunder is, that you were going to no-sell how freaking awesome this was. So Jindrak really and O'Hare, they beal him from the floor over the top rope into the ring, and Sanders hits a power slam all in one motion. I cannot think of a more impressive move on a less impressive show than this.
Yes, it was by far the highlight. Jindrak and O'Hare now come over to talk on commentary as well. Mike Sanders is beating up all three dragons. What am I watching?
Including Sanders, the heel here, running through a double clothesline and hitting the Togi Makabe double clothesline onto the Young Dragons. What?
And then the valet, Leia Meow, on the outside. She takes her boots off, hits a seated senton off the top, and pins Mike Sanders. What am I watching?
It's worse than that. She takes her boots off. She gets into the ring. She slaps Jimmy Yang, at which point Mike Tenay excitedly screams, "It's discipline time," because apparently Leia Mayao had a dominatrix gimmick. Then, as you said, she hits the Rey Mysterio seated senton, which is just a crotch Thez press off the top, and pins Mike Sanders, like you said.
So someone not in the match makes the pin to win the match.
So we've got the Booker in the world title match on Nitro, and someone not in the match here on the opening match on Thunder gets the pin. This is so WCW 2000. And it was frustrating as hell because, like, as bad as the commentary was, as dumb as this show is, the action in this match was super fun. And, like, there's a world with a different Booker and a different presentation where these 6 guys having a 6-man tag to kick off an episode of Thunder could just have been awesome. But instead, this is what we got.
After commercial, Disco Inferno's in the back with Conan, Rey Mysterio, and Juventud Guerrera. And nothing happens here. They just are in the back.
Disco's holding a duck. That's the... we go from that to that 70s guy, Mike Awesome, in the Lava Lamp Lounge.
This is an interview segment where Mike Awesome has 70s decor, a couch, a lava lamp, and he's going to interview some people.
His version of like the Heartbreak Hotel or Piper's Pit,
Yep.
Piper's Pit, or anything like that. But it's Mike Awesome, who has many attributes. He's huge. He can fly.
Yes.
He can take punishment. He has an incredible mullet. The one thing that Mike Awesome cannot do is talk. And so what do you have here? Mike Awesome hosting a talk show segment and trying to be funny. This is one of those things where it had to be like a rib on Mike Awesome. Like the fat chick thriller thing was before that. He had horrible gimmicks in WCW. That they just went with because nobody cared.
So his guests are Paisley, Tigress, Major Guns, and Tori Wilson. So these are all women competing in the pageant to be Miss WCW.
Tigress is with the Filthy Animals. Major Guns we'll see later as an unwilling member of Team Canada. Tori Wilson, I don't know who they had her.
She's the head cheerleader of Shane Douglas.
Oh, that's right, of the franchise. We don't call him Shane Douglas in WCW in 2000. He's just the franchise. And then Paisley, did we see who she was with, or was she just there?
She was with Kiwi.
Oh, God, that's right. Kiwi, he of the Miracle match, the opener, I believe against Jason Jett, if I'm not mistaken. The former Easy Money at the Greed pay-per-view.
So I'm embarrassed that I knew all those things too. So this segment is terrible. They're going to have a bikini contest on Nitro. Everything about this sucks. The women argue in not entertaining fashion. Like, this is not entertaining at all. Like, there's a world where this could be entertaining. They could have some funny lines or be over the top campy, like glow, or do something. Like, that is not this. This is just bad. And then a couple of Nitro girls come out. Yeah, they say they're going to be there.
Che, who I definitely remember, and Chiquita, who I have no recollection of at all.
No, and so these two Nitro girls come out, and they say they're going to be part of this competition, but they do it in a way that made me think that the previous non-entertaining arguing was significantly better than this promo that they were cutting here with these Nitro girls interrupting. They were way worse than all these other women. So this was just unbearably bad. And then they trash Mike Awesome's set, which is the shtick that happens every week. Someone trashes his set.
Yeah, the whole thing, I hate to even analyze this further, but like the whole undercurrent was like they were all flirting with Mike Awesome because they thought he was going to be the judge for this this Miss WCW contest. And then Chiquita and Che come out and say, no, he's not going to be. And then the other four stop flirting with him and start messing up his set and knocking stuff over. This is terrible. The only thing that makes it not as bad as some of those Disco Inferno segments on the NWA TNA weekly shows when he had his sit-down thing is that they have standards and practices at the Turner Networks, and some of the even more crass, dumb, ridiculous things that they did on those or on the Dup Cup stuff can't happen here, but it's of the same mind 100%.
We go to the back. Mean Gene's still in WCW in 2000. Thank God Mean Gene's here.
This completely took me aback.
Me too.
Gene interviews Scott Steiner, who basically says that I need to go have sex with Midajah right now. He says, I need a release. Midajah, get over here.
It's Steiner who beat Goldberg on Sunday. This has been cleared up now. And Steiner's fired up. Russo comes out. Again, wearing a helmet, and he's going to have a world title warm-up match.
Well, before that, as he's getting ready to come down the ring, Tony Schiavone says, we no longer have tag team champions, thanks to Disco Inferno. No further explanation as to what the existence of Disco Inferno has to do with there no longer being tag team champions. You could argue that the existence of Disco Inferno on your roster puts your company out of business, which then means you don't have tag champs because you don't have a company. Tony then says, we'll have a battle royal to determine new champions on Monday. Throughout the rest of the show, they don't like put up a graphic. They don't have a big announcement. Just each ring introduction as it's happening, Tony Schiavone or Mike Tenay will just casually tell us who's going to be in this battle royal for the tag team belts. He tells us Chronic and Rey Mysterio and the team of Rey Mysterio, Juventud, Guerrera will be part of the battle royal. This is where I then realized that, is it Pamela Paulshock that is the ring announcer here for Thunder? That is correct. There are some horrendous ring announcers in modern times as we record this podcast, some of which are inexplicably celebrated as great. They are all exponentially better than Pamela Paulshock here.
Yeah, a battle royal to crown new tag team champions. Of course, that's how you would crown tag team champions in WCW.
We should just be thrilled that Vince Russo hadn't come up with the idea for a reverse battle royal yet.
So Russo comes out wearing a helmet for his world title warm-up match. His opponent, from parts unknown, the Masked Heel. He looks like a continental jobber wearing a head-to-toe black sweatsuit.
Now, continental jobbers, I will take offense with that. Continental jobbers, you cannot tell who they are. The second the Masked Heel walked out, it's so obviously Stevie Ray. They made no attempt to hide the fact that this is Stevie Ray.
So Russo with horrible punches and a boot. He rips his shirt off. He then hits the worst leg drop in the history of professional wrestling.
What I find to be most ironic about that is that the man that he is in the ring with hit the only and yet worst ever first rope leg drop in professional wrestling history, which we've chronicled here on this podcast in a prior episode, Stevie Ray.
Yes, this was unbelievably bad watching him drop this leg. I couldn't believe it. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's the worst leg drop I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm glad you said worst leg drop you've ever seen. And you didn't say worst thing you've ever heard, because that's what we have next as Russo is raising the roof. Masked Heel pops up and is no selling. Russo whispers in Masked Heel's ear, and Tony Schiavone excitedly said, Russo's calling spots.
Yes, he's calling spots is what the announcer says during the show.
Why am I watching this?
Who is this for?
Who, other than for Vince Russo,
For
who
Vince
gets off
Russo.
on this stuff, who is the audience for bad wrestling where the announcers tell you throughout the show, don't care about this, this is fake?
Yeah, it's like it's completely unbelievable. There's no TV show, there's no movie, there's nothing that would do this. There's no wrestling show that would do this.
No.
Only WCW, only in the year 2000.
Well, because the thing that drives me crazy is like it's also so inconsistent. Like Tony Schiavone he'll be yelling about calling spots, but then 30 seconds later, he's calling the match like we're supposed to care about it, like we're supposed to act like it's real. Like what? It's so frustrating.
It is. Russo tries a spear, but heel doesn't move this time. He takes the mask off. Of course, it's Stevie Ray, surprising nobody except for Russo. Stevie hits Russo with the slapjack weapon that he's got, and then Stevie says Booker will finish him off on Monday. Russo's in the back with Chronic, and he says, you will destroy Stevie Ray tonight or you're fired. So his gimmick is running around threatening to fire people too.
Yes, because that's what happens on the other program. So, hey, if we just put this guy who's got no charisma at all, it'll be the same thing. Yes. Then we get Ray and Hoovy on the stairs backstage arguing with Conan about Disco Inferno and whether he is going to remain a part of the Filthy Animals.
We then go to the ring. Torrie Wilson with the franchise, Shane Douglas, come out to take on Paisley, who's accompanied by Kiwi. And this was terrible. Paisley wins with a roll-up. Douglas then, after the match, hits the franchiser on Paisley, which apologies to the Bubba Bomb that we always make fun of as being like the worst, one of the worst pro wrestling moves.
Apologies from me personally to the top rope sunset flip.
Top rope sunset flip. Apologies all around, because the franchiser is an embarrassingly bad move as well.
It's known in other circles as the bareback.
The Danny Doring circles that you're in.
Yes, the Danny Doring circles. It is a move where you hug your opponent.
Yes.
And while you're hugging him, you drop to your knees, and it is supposed to hurt him. It's like it's an inverted stunner.
An inverted stunner, yeah.
Except an inverted stunner would never work. No. Yet that's what they do here, and it doesn't work. Like we joked around before, like oh man, like it's so crazy in ECW watching like guys practically get thrown off of buildings and stabbed and all this different crazy stuff. And then you got Shane Douglas winning world titles with a belly-to-belly suplex. As you mentioned right before we started recording, a belly-to-belly suplex is exponentially better as a finisher in the late 90s or early 2000s as opposed to this franchiser. And we should say again, we don't call him Shane Douglas. He is just the franchise. That is his name. The first name, franchise last name.
Tigress comes in, jumps on Douglas. He throws her off. He goes to hit his finisher on her, but Conan comes out to make the save.
Also, a few other weird things about this. First, franchise is in the booth, and he says that he and Torrie Wilson are the first couple of sports entertainment. Hearing Shane Douglas, of all people, who think about all his rants he went on about WWF and WCW and mainstream wrestling and sports entertainment, ECW, hearing him playing the exact same character here in WCW, saying sports entertainment, that was something. Also, Mike Tenay, again, like an example of how checked out he was, and understandably so. Mike Tenay, the guy who knows every move, right? Conan hits his rolling clothesline, and Mike Tenay, I swear to God, calls it a DDT. What in the world? Also, like with about 30 seconds left in this match, if you can call it that, why were Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak standing on the ramp. We get like a 3-second shot of them standing on the ramp. Nobody says anything in the booth on why they're there. We never see them again. They don't factor into this whatsoever.
Russo's in the back with Mike Sanders. He tells him to stay close. He'll have a job for him. We go to the ring. We hear "O Canada" playing as Team Canada comes out. Team Canada is the members of Team Canada are currently Hacksaw Jim Duggan, the American turncoat, joining Team Canada.
I have no recollections, and I watched WCW week in and week out, even during this era. I have zero recollection of a clean-shaven heel Team Canada turncoat Hacksaw Jim Duggan here with Elix Skipper, Major Guns, and Lance Storm. I do definitely remember Lance Storm in WCW during this time because he was one of the only consistently great things week in and week out, no matter how terrible the material was, no matter how lame the feuds were, the never-ending feud between the Misfits in Action and Team Canada. Lance Storm was always tremendous.
Lance Storm is the U.S. champion here, rebranded as the Canadian champion. And he kicks us off by saying, "If I can be serious for a minute." And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I love Lance Storm. He was tremendous. A bright spot on this show that I forgot about. You know, he's thank God because he just got swallowed up in this whole WCW sucks thing. But man, was he was very good at what he was doing here at this time.
He is the baby that got thrown out with the bathwater as far as WCW 2000 was concerned.
So Duggan cuts a promo. He talks about attacking the MIA and General Rection.
He blames the fans. I could hear Jim Valley somewhere laughing about that.
The Misfits in Action show up, and then they get beat down by Team Canada.
I feel like for new listeners, we're not selling how terrible the Misfits in Action stable was enough. We have Corporal Cajun, who was
Lash LaRue,
who I saw wrestle last year in 2023 for GCW in his first match in like 10 years. And he looked great out there against Joey Janela. I want to see more Lash LaRue, WCW Never Die. He did not wrestle as Corporal Cajun, by the way. He wrestled as Lash LaRue. We have AWOL, who is The Wall. We have Lieutenant Loco, who is Chavo Guerrero. And the leader of the Misfits in Action, General Rection, who is...
Get it? Do you get it?
General Rection, who is Hugh Morris. Can you imagine having two worse pun names as a professional wrestler? You are Hugh Morris, and you transition from that to General Rection. At least Thurman Sparky Plug became Hardcore Holly.
Oh, yeah, the Misfits in Action were horrible. I love that they came out here and got beat up. The story is that General Rection is trying to protect the American flag because the Canadians were going to burn it or whatever.
Like he's on a battlefield or something. And Tony Schiavone is just, again, I feel bad for Tony because he had nothing to work with, but like the clearly put upon outrage that Tony and Tenay, for some reason, Tenay isn't a heel during this segment, it just does not work at all. The story was that General Rection had been mentored by Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hacksaw was passing the torch of being the rah-rah American flag guy in wrestling to General Rection, and then he turned on him and joined that evil, horrible country of Canada.
Team Canada stands tall. Mike Sanders gets in a forklift, and he moves the forklift like 2 inches in front of Booker T's locker room door so that he can't come out later for Stevie's match.
The forklift is so conveniently placed like 6 inches away from the door for, again, this is one of those, like, they're trying so hard to be Monday Night Raw with these backstage segments, but it's just not working at all. So yeah, he parks it in front of Booker's locker room to trap Booker.
But it's like it's like they were doing the pre-production and they're like, all right, we're going to drive the forklift. Sanders is going to drive the forklift and he's going to pin Booker into the locker room with the forklift. And they're like, cool. You're allowed to drive this forklift 6 inches and no further because you're not insured to go any further than this. And so
I think that may be the most shocking thing about this show, that WCW apparently abided by OSHA regulations.
So I assume it was a big union guy that owned the forklift. It was like, you're not driving it more than 6 inches. They're like, done, sir. So Sanders drove it 6 inches to block Booker's locker room here. So we go to Mean Gene with Jeff Jarrett.
This is an all-timer. I had forgotten also, again, that Gene Okerlund was here in WCW at this time period, but also Gene was just
grumpy.
A grumpy, irascible old man. That was the Gene Okerlund character.
You may be the chosen one, my friend, but you can't be happy with Vince Russo's decision tonight.
Hello, Jurassic Slap-Ass. Long time no see.
Hey, Jarrett, blow it out your ass. Just answer my damn question.
Whoa. Seems to me someone's a little bit snippy.
This is insane. So Jeff Jarrett walks into frame, calls Gene Okerlund a Jurassic Slap-Ass. Gene, indignant, immediately says back to him, blow it out your ass and answer my question. What am I watching? That was maybe the only thing on this show that crossed into fun bad territory.
Yes, that is
was
correct.
So bad that it was like objectively tremendous.
This was
that
fun
was
bad.
Great.
Yes. Mean Gene is fun bad for sure. Blow it out your ass and answer my question. Fantastic.
I can't think of a better response to anything here going forward.
Jarrett says tonight him and Steiner will destroy Sting, and then it'll be Jarrett's time.
How did they not make merch then, or how have not any of the high-end wrestling t-shirt bootleggers of modern times made a Gene Okerlund shirt where it has this still in frame and says, blow it out your ass on the front, and the back says, answer my question. Opportunity lost.
Because they forgot that Mean Gene was in WCW in 2000 also.
And I'm sure Gene was trying to forget while he was in WCW 2000.
Stevie Ray in a handicap match taking on Chronic. As punishment from Vince Russo, lots of double teaming. They bring a chair into the ring. They go for their move, the high time. Get it? Chronic? The high time? It's a double choke slam. Instead, they move the chairs out of the way, and they just double choke slam Stevie in the ring without the chairs and get the pin. Russo confronts Chronic after the match because he's angry that they had the opportunity to destroy Stevie Ray, and they did not. He says, you screw me or cross me one more time, and you are done.
I understand. I really do, that you don't want to linger too much on any of these horrible segments, but there's still more.
Help me unpack it. Them.
Well, I do have to say, I thought Jeremy Borash, as a guy who really had not been on TV much at this point, was a tremendous Vince Russo toady on commentary.
Oh, for sure. He was as annoying as the character needed to be.
He was great in that role.
He was great.
The match is about to start. Borash says, direct quote, suckers are kind of curious what's going to happen in this match. I cackled. Also, Chronic has an absolutely unhinged look. It is amazing.
Fashion corner.
It is, yes, quick fashion corner. It is Brian Clark, he of the Atom Bomb Wrath vintage, and Brian Adams. He does not cut like a knife. He is, in fact, the former Crush in all his iterations. One wears black jeans. The other wears black swishy pants. Both wear tight black tank tops and sunglasses. They both have like long balding hair and ridiculous facial hair. The crowd reacts to nothing in this match.
No.
And part of it is because like they're supposed to like Stevie Ray. Chronic are big time baby faces. Like as bad as WCW is during this time period, Chronic is mega over. Like they are a they're a success story in the context of what WCW 2000 is. Yet the whole thing here is they're helping Vince Russo, and they're these big badasses, but they're too scared to get fired, so they help Vince Russo. So of course the crowd isn't going to like them, but they're not going to care.
No, and this is nowhere near the peak of Chronic. I mean, in that 2001 Greed pay-per-view, we're like, holy, is this crowd sweetening and crowd noise here? But no, this was like people were passionate fans of Chronic in 2000, 2001. Like, they were extremely popular.
Well, think about like Brian Clark. He's a guy who, like, I mean, not a great wrestler, but he had a unique look. He's a big guy that can move. He had 2 periods in WCW where he was mega over that they did not capitalize on. When he was Wrath, not Wrath Mortis, but when he was Wrath, basically being Adam Bomb, but being called Wrath, he went on that long winning streak. They kind of a Goldberg style winning streak that I believe that Kevin Nash killed and ended. But like, that's a guy who, for whatever reason, got over big time with WCW fans a few times, and they didn't really go all the way with it.
We go back to the ring for the Filthy Animals coming out. It's a #1 contenders match for the Cruiserweight title. Rey Mysterio versus Juventud Guerrera.
Thank God.
We're going to get a match. Yes.
Rey and Hoovy, you see me wearing the Nitro shirt. I'm immediately going back to all their great matches against each other, great matches as partners, great matches on Nitro with different opponents. I am ready.
Both men are unmasked. Rey is wearing stupid horns. They're dumb.
Like, Rey has no mask, but he has horns glued to his forehead. Meanwhile, Hoovy is wearing what can only be described as cow print pants. Like, hopefully fake fur, but like fur cow print pants. Rey is wearing a black jumpsuit or onesie. He is dressed more like Homicide or New Jack than Rey Mysterio. He has the horns on. Meanwhile, Conan is on commentary, and he's trying so hard to make this sound like an important wrestling match. He's explaining the history of all the different weight divisions in Lucha Libre and how it's similar to the weight divisions in boxing.
Conan was phenomenal on commentary.
Tremendous.
They trade monkey flips. They're trading counters. This match is starting off hot. Hoovy's throwing some chops. He misses a stinger splash in the corner. Rey tries a roll-up. Rey counters into a roll-up of his own and gets a 2 count. They're arguing, and then they end up double clotheslining each other. So they were trying to start, they're friends. They're stable mates. They're in the same faction, and they started off and grappling until Hoovy threw the first shot, and then it broke down real quick here.
These guys are going so much harder than they have any right to be doing,
Yes.
given how dire of a television program this is and how dire of a product WCW was at this time period. Apparently, Elix Skipper was the Cruiserweight champion, so the winner of this would go on to wrestle Elix Skipper. Also, commentary highlights Conan calling Disco Inferno a humongous cranberry. I don't know why that made me laugh so much, but it did, just in Conan voice. Also, Conan being maybe the only announcer I've ever heard, English language announcer, correctly call a pescado a pescado.
I have it in my notes. Yeah, Hoovy hits a pescado over the top to the floor. Conan calls it a pescado. I was thrilled. I'm like, look at this.
Yes, when you slingshot yourself over the top into a crossbody, that is a pescado, like a fish out of water, a fish jumping out of water and landing back in. A plancha is when you jump off the top rope, like off the corner or even springboard style. That's a plancha. You got it right.
Back inside, Hoovy in the corner. Rey charges in, and Hoovy stops him by trying a head scissors. He's got his ankles on the shoulders of Rey, and Rey just grabs Hoovy's legs and yanks him off to the mat.
This great action is happening, like tremendous action, particularly by the standards of what we're seeing on this show. The announcers are just arguing incessantly about, quote, whether Disco Inferno has been voted off of Filthy Animal Island.
Rey does a Bronco Buster, which is one of my least favorite moves in wrestling. A Brain Buster by Hoovy. Rey hits a spinning head scissors. then hits a head scissors on the floor. Here's where I'm like, guys, WCW 2000, tone it down. Ray's throwing head scissors on the floor.
It gets even crazier. Back in the ring, Ray springboard into a Rana. Juvi counters it into a powerbomb all-in-one motion for a near fall. Then a springboard splash, another near fall. This is awesome.
Yes. Ray with a really cool transition into a roll-up with a bridge. A moonsault by Ray gets countered into a Juvi driver, but Ray kicks out. Ray powerbombs Juvi, goes for the bridge like he did earlier, but this time gets countered into like the sunset flip position, and he's hooked for the pin. Really fun. This picked up even more in the second half of this match. This was exceeded my expectations of what I thought I was going to get on a Thunder. Disco comes out afterward, and they all attack Disco, officially kicking him out of the Filthy Animals group.
Yeah, this was, again, in the context of what was on this show and how wrestling was not important at all, clearly, to the people that were booking the show at this point. The fact that these guys went out and did this match, which was clearly not going to be appreciated by anyone inside the company, it just speaks to like how seriously they took their craft at this point. Like they just willed themselves into having this match in such a terrible setting.
But if you think about it, it's still probably like, you know, we've seen them have, you know, this wouldn't even be in the top 5 of matches we've seen them have together.
No, not even the top 25.
Yeah. So this is them downshifting to have a match on this show, but it's still so great because of the level that if they downshift from 100 to 75 while everyone else is doing 25, this is it still stands out.
Yeah, again, this to your point, this was not Ray Juvi wrestling on Nitro in 96 or 97 or in ECW or anything like that, but this was still, by the standards of what we were seeing, light years ahead of anything, and again, still, even pulling it back a little bit, far harder than anyone would have blamed them for going if they went a lot lighter.
Mean Genes with Sting. Sting's mad that they cost him the opportunity at the title. He's got a game plan to deal with this 2-on-1 situation later tonight.
Talk about another guy who is a pro. Sting is
always. He
is fired up here. Again, he's Crow Sting, but he's sort of got the attitude of Surfer Sting at this point. And just seeing Sting and Mean Gene on this show, which has no star power otherwise. We've talked about stars, but like no one that feels like a star. Like somehow Sting still feels like Sting. Like everyone else on this show feels so much lesser of a star than they did a year or two earlier, even though many of them are higher up in the card than they were a couple years prior. Sting still feels like Sting.
3 count come out. The team of Evan Courageous, Shane Helms, and Shannon Moore doing a boy band gimmick. They do a little dance, but they're interrupted by Ron and Don Harris, speaking of not having stars.
Speaking of this feeling like a TNA weekly pay-per-view.
Boss Man slam by one of the Harrises.
And it's not Ron and Don Harris. It's Big Ron and Heavy D.
Yeah, they're dominating this match in the most boring fashion possible. This is we talked about it over in the bonus feed, how you can see exciting squash matches. We reviewed one. This was a squash match in boring fashion.
I've never appreciated Chronic more than seeing the Harris brothers like a half hour later. Just so boring as big squash guys.
Yeah, they pull out a weapon, a baseball bat with a chain wrapped around it, but Chronic run out, Jindrak and O'Hare run in, and this broke down into a preview of our Tag Team Championship Battle Royal.
I just love how everyone decides to run out and have a Battle Royal preview here. But the only people I feel like we didn't see were the guys that were standing on the stage for no reason for 3 seconds a few segments earlier, Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak.
And now
maybe they legit thought like they had the wrong format, had the wrong time cues, and thought that segment was where they were supposed to come out. That segment earlier is where the Battle Royal thing was going to happen. It didn't, and they got confused.
Now it's time for the main event of this show. It's not in the ring. It is Mike Tenay's sit-down interview. A weirdly aggressive interview with Stacy Keibler to talk about how she felt after leaving her fiancé, David Flair, at the altar, and announcing that David is not the father of her unborn child. Stacy asks for forgiveness. Tenay says, quote, "He would have taken a shot if he wasn't married and had morals." What? Tenay saying he would have shot his shot with Stacy. This is crazy.
He talks about how many have there been. Can we count them on one or two hands?
He says, what's the over-under, Stacy? How many has there been?
He then says, you're starting to show. I guess you won't be in the swimsuit competition. She says that she's the victim here. Tenay is offended. Tenay says there are two victims, the kid and David. She runs away, and he says, save those tears for someone who cares, and then dramatically looks at the camera and says, boy, she's going to make a terrific mother. What the hell did we just watch?
I told you, us recapping won't do it justice. So here is the very end of this weird segment with Mike Tenay.
Mike, it's not my fault. I'm the victim here.
You feel like you're the victim? No, there's two victims, David Flair and that unborn child. What you're feeling is guilt. Yeah, and save those tears for somebody who gives a damn. Boy, she's going to make a terrific mother.
And by the way, if you're looking for a visual, follow us on social media.
Is this the
Those
GIF?
last few seconds are the GIF. It's the only thing that could be the GIF from this show.
All right, so someone moved the forklift from Booker's locker room door. Vince Russo joins on commentary.
Well, okay. Let's. There's a few things here. We as we're coming back from commercial after this horrible Tenay, misogynistic, aggressive interview of Stacy Keibler, we see Jarrett and Steiner walking in the hallway dramatically to the ring, but they walk too fast and bump into the cameraman and like the guy that's holding the like light shield umbrella thing. So that happens. We then have backstage some random dude say, who the hell moved this thing? I've been looking for it all day. How has he been looking for it all day? It just got moved an hour ago.
And it only moved like 6 inches.
Exactly.
It's not on the other side of the building.
There's a few questions about this guy, this random worker. He clearly does not have a good sense of time. And also, he lost something that was just like a foot away from where he found it.
And it was only the size of a forklift. So it could have slipped by anybody. So Vince Russo's on commentary. He says, quote, I'm going to drop a bombshell during this match. So look forward to that. It's a 3-way in the main event. Sting versus Jeff Jarrett versus Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner on the mic rants about beating Goldberg, cuts a promo on Booker T. Sting attacks both men.
Well, as Sting is getting ready to attack both men, we have another horrible line from Tony Schiavone as he says, as great of a performer in sports entertainment as Sting has been, can Sting overcome the odds here?
He's in control until Jarrett reverses a whip to the corner and Steiner hits the belly-to-belly suplex. Jarrett and Steiner start the double team, and Russo drops his bombshell. Quote, Caged Heat will be the match with Booker T versus Vince Russo for the WCW title.
They don't explain what Caged Heat is. I think that was something on Cinemax in the early 90s. I have no idea what that has to do with this. As they talk about it, and Russo's talking about throwing Booker off of Caged Heat, I assume it's their version of Hell in the Cell. I don't know.
Sting clotheslined over the top to the floor. Booker T hits the ring dressed as Sting with face paint. Booker does the Stinger splash on both guys, and Booker should have incorporated the Stinger Splash into his arsenal because he does a tremendous Stinger Splash.
He might be the only person other than Sting that's actually done a Stinger Splash well. This look is awesome.
It's awesome.
Want Crow Sting and Crow Booker as a team. I immediately, because I am a sicko, I immediately flashed back to, I believe it was Uncensored 1995, where it was going to be Sting and Lex Luger against the Road Warriors in a Chicago street fight. And Luger was too much of a coward to do the match in story. So Booker T, who had just been a member of Harlem Media, never had a singles turn. Booker T became Sting's partner for one night in that match. I love Booker T and Sting fighting on the same side. This look is tremendous.
It was so good, and Booker was so good doing Sting moves.
Yes,
I loved it.
And wearing Sting paint, it looked awesome.
Russo hits the ring, wearing a helmet with a baseball bat, but Sting cuts him off, puts him in a Scorpion Deathlock. Jeff Jarrett's in with the guitar, hits Sting with a guitar shot. The bell rings.
That is what led to a disqualification. We had all the stuff, including people not in the match coming in.
Not Booker's interference. Booker's interference, not a disqualification.
Well, maybe the referee was like Tony Schiavone at first, didn't realize it was Booker T. Tony's like, who is this man? And it is clearly Booker T in face paint. We've had both Booker T and Stevie Ray in the lightest of disguises that have fooled everyone on commentary.
Yeah, so the guitar shot was the DQ. They beat down Booker with a pipe and a bat. Steiner recliner on Booker. Figure 4 on Sting. And that's your show.
No, the show ends with the crowd chanting for Goldberg, who will certainly not be coming out.
So I had to do research to find out, okay, well, what happened on Nitro?
I'm sure there's a logical progression.
And what happened with Stacy Keibler's baby? Let's find out. So, Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer newsletter, reports there are people within WCW who were claiming that Russo's idea was to put the title on himself at the Nassau show, but he was talked out of it because of how negatively it would have gone over with the company. The Nitro on September 25th at the Nassau Coliseum drew 4,898 fans, a total of 2,800 paid for what was the lowest paid attendance for a wrestling show in the history of the Nassau Coliseum. Wow. And it was and so as best we can tell, the last time there was a major arena show in the New York City market that drew less than 3,000 paid, that would have been during the Depression in the 1930s. So
to put that into context, the Depression in the 1930s, as bleak of a time in American history as there has ever been, economically, financially, everything, more people were able to cobble together money to go to a wrestling show than people were willing to do in September of 2000 to go watch WCW.
That is correct.
All of this, again, like I every single joke we make, or every like, it hurts my heart because I am a WCW kid. This is all like, it's all warranted.
So that Nitro, they gave away Goldberg versus Steiner in a cage, unadvertised on free TV. The main event was the cage match with Russo versus Booker T. Half the world got involved in this match. Goldberg ended up in the cage. Somewhere in this mess, Flair got knocked out he got knocked out to set up Goldberg. Booker was ready to win, but hesitated when Goldberg came out, and the match ended with Booker going through the door. At the same time, Goldberg spears Russo through the cage, with the idea that Russo went through the cage at the same time Booker T went through the door, so they went off the air not knowing who won the championship.
So an overly convoluted cage match version of the Royal Rumble 94 finish.
Yes.
I'm sure ratings picked up dramatically from there.
Oh, they had to, because the Who is the Father storyline went on for weeks with David Flair trying to figure out who is the father. March 13th, 2001 Nitro. Stacy Keibler returns after being gone for months. She comes back with the Mecca of Manhood, Sean Stasiak. Stacy's pushing a baby carriage, and she reveals that she made up the pregnancy for attention and that Sean Stasiak is her, quote, baby. The seven...
Oh my God, I remember that. That's one of those things I completely memory hold. Oh my God.
The 7-month storyline that was forgotten after the 3rd month had no payoff and got nobody over. It was speculated that either Ric Flair or Vince Russo himself would have eventually been revealed as the father of Stacy Keibler's baby. However, Vince Russo's run as head of creative ended before the father was revealed. Wow. So, there you go.
That is Thunder in WCW in 2000. The only postscript I have for that is, in modern times, you hear a lot of people who are not old enough to have been around in 2000.
We watched this real time. We watched it real time.
Have never actually watched it and have only read people talk about it. They will equate things that happen in the major professional wrestling companies in 2024 and say, oh, this is just like WCW 2000.
Wrong. They're wrong.
You're wrong. You did not live this. You've not even gone back and lived this or relived it. If you did, you would never say such things. There is nothing that is happening in wrestling right now in a major promotion that even remotely approaches the depths of which WCW is sinking in every conceivable way during this time period. It is a time unto itself that thankfully, yes, we can talk about, TNA weekly pay-per-views. Like, that was a failed company from the start whose only success has been existing. WCW actually had real business success. They actually beat the WWF for almost 2 years. And then less than 2 years after that, this is where they were at.
Favorite thing on this show, Adam?
In ring, it's Ray Hoovy. Without a doubt, the best thing was Gene Okerlund's reaction to Jeff Jarrett calling him a Jurassic Slapnuts. But yeah, seeing Sting working so much harder than he should have. And then obviously Ray and Hoovy putting on a level of match that was not, that this show was not worthy of.
Yeah. Honorable mention to Booker T doing Sting things just as well as Sting. And I would also say honorable mention to O'Hare and Jindrak launching Jamie Noble or one of whoever it was into the ring to get power slammed in the one motion by Mike Sanders. Worst thing on this show?
The entire show, I would say. it's there we go. My camera's back. Yes, just the show as a whole. Like it's sometimes we'll do these shows and we'll be like, well, this isn't really a representative sample of what was happening in the company. Oh, we got an oddball show. No, this is WCW 2000. Yes, it's Thunder, but most of the stars that be on Nitro are here, and this is what WCW was in 2000. An absolute mess. There's a million things you could say were the worst thing on it, but for me, the worst thing by far is this constant back and forth between the announcers trying to get us to feel the emotion of a pro wrestling show while also telling us it's fake and talking about formats and talking about calling spots. It's horrible.
That is correct. That is by far the worst thing on the show. Honorable mention to the man who causes all that horrible stuff being all over this show. Vince Russo putting himself in world title matches, considering putting the title on himself, considering making him the father of Stacy Keibler's baby. This guy was everywhere, and it's it's not entertaining. And then writing all of that horrible stuff that you described, all of the stuff to take you out of a show that you were barely in. You were struggling to get in. If you were watching this show, you were trying hard. And
you can see
were
the fans. You can see and hear the fans trying, and they just can't get there. Like, they're early on in the show, like as the intros happen, everything, like the crowd is fired up, and it just gets completely sucked out of them. Without a doubt, though, I know we've talked about individual little things. By far the worst thing on the show, and one of the worst things I think that's ever aired on a major pro wrestling TV show, has got to be that Mike Tenay, Stacy Keibler thing.
So bad.
And it's so bad in a vacuum, but it's so much worse when you realize that, like, just all these tortured expressions and everything, when then we're led to believe later on that, like, she was making it up the entire time. Why would she have done that interview and sat through it's just so bad on so many levels.
We did it. We made it through an episode of Thunder. We've made it through season 5 of Wrestling at Random.
Unbelievable. Season 5, a show that started a few weeks after the pandemic began in April of 2020.
Yeah, we needed something to watch because nothing was on. What should we watch of all of the wrestling content out there? What should we watch? I don't know. Pick something at random to watch.
Yes, and we needed something to watch, and we needed something to do. We each had other podcasts, but
that were not active. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, baseball wasn't happening.
Nope.
A bunch of episodes of The Big Audio Nightmare those first few months of the pandemic were us doing like retro reviews because nothing was happening. So we started this podcast, and 5 seasons later, probably upwards of around 150, 160 episodes on the free feed. We're still going, and we're already getting ready for season 6.
So as we take a break for season 6, this is your chance. We love when we get messages saying that, hey, I was going through the back catalog and I'm listening to AWA show from 86 and blah, blah, blah. And we love to hear about that stuff. And now is the time that you can go back. We're going to get a break from new episodes. So now's the time you can go back. Those are all evergreen content. So if you didn't listen to something we reviewed, one of these previous Thunders, some of these Nitros from that Bash at the Beach 2000, all of that's in the back catalog for free right now. You can have more WCW 2000 if you'd like right now. So go and enjoy the back catalog episodes while we're on the season break. If you want more content, you're like, hey, I've already listened to all of that. I've been a passionate listener for years. Well, good news. There's 160 plus bonus episodes over on the Patreon, patreon.com/wrestling at random. There, every single week we put out a new episode, something you haven't heard over in the free feed. You've heard samples. We've dropped a couple of bonus episodes here in the free feed, but there's 160 some more episodes you haven't heard over there. Weird stuff, listener requested things. We've got all kinds of
movie review over there. It's
review.
Basically like an alternate timeline of this podcast. We started the bonus feed a couple seasons in, I believe, at least one season in. And again, we do them during a season break. We still are doing those each and every week, but there's about the same amount of episodes in the bonus feed as we currently have in the free feed, but they're all different. They're all new. If you've never subscribed, you've never heard them before, you can create your own season 5.5 by listening to the bonus feed in between seasons 5 and 6.
Only $5 unlocks all 160 plus episodes. So you can try it out for a month, give it a go, listen to some episodes. We've got some really interesting stuff over there and a lot of companion pieces to stuff that's in the free feed. So there's fun stuff that we've got. If you only heard the one episode of SmackDown where Edge was kidnapping Paul Bearer, the other one is over in the bonus feed.
yes. That was a multiple episode of SmackDown long story arc where a patron who supports us at the Intentionalizer tier chose that ridiculous episode for us to watch, because we always joke about how like Kane, Paul Bearer, Undertaker, that whole lore, someone needs to do a podcast about that. So they chose that for us to watch. And then however many months later, the randomizer chose the following episode of SmackDown, the following week's episode of SmackDown out of like 60,000 hours of professional wrestling. That's what it chose for us to watch.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff over there. Please support the show through Patreon. If you can't support the show financially in these times, we understand that as well. You can support the show by telling your wrestling fan friends about the show. Tell them to subscribe and dig in through the back catalog of the podcast while we're on the season break. Now is the perfect time to catch up. So make sure you're telling your wrestling fan friends about the show as well. And follow us on all the social media platforms. Adam said the GIF is going to be there. You want to see all the GIFs from all the shows we've reviewed. Interact with the show there. We love to hear comments, and we do love to interact on X, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook. We are on all those platforms. You can find us at Wrestle at Random on all of those platforms. All the links I described, the entire back catalog of this podcast, all of that is, of course, available at wrestlingatrandom.com or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. And with that, we're going to call it a podcast. We're going to call it a season, Adam. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Randomizer. Thank you, everyone who's listened throughout season 5 of Wrestling at Random. And like I said, we'll be back soon for season 6. And if you check us out over on the Patreon, we'll be back next week.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we'll talk to you again next time.